What is going on, everybody? What is going on? It is Friday, August 18th, 2023, and we are back with the weekly live stream here on the Torian Rain Reloaded channel. If you have not done so already, please be sure to go ahead and hit that like button, hit that share button. If you are newly subscribed to the channel, welcome to the channel. And shout out to everybody who has subscribed to me this week, because my subscriptions went up a lot this week because of that video that I did on Jason Aldean. That video did very good numbers, plus the video that I did the next day about black voters, that one did good numbers as well. So I think, the algorithm is loving me for right now, but anything can change at any given moment. So I'm just going to ride the wave while I can. And before we actually get started, let me go ahead and give some acknowledgments to those who are in the chat so far. We got Darlene, Tony 45, DSA 1, Queen of Spades, Donna C, F the Hawkins, Detroit Kings 313, Tata Man, Rachel, Marin, Buzzercam H1, Denise Scales, Donna C, 007 Spidey 2, Tamika's Den, DSM Sinister, Till Dog 12, Lisa Hickman, Bot Boy versus DQ, PD Chicago B #B1, Stay Positive, Scoop 2003, Charles Jameson, Letitia, Denzimus, Dark Titan, Iron Will, Don P. Ben Yehuda, DSB, and PTZ so far. And Dewani just came in as well. Shout out to everybody who was in here so far. I'm glad that you are all in the building right now. Put down also in the comments, I'm curious to know, what topic are y'all looking forward to today? I was able to fit all the topics I'm talking about today in today's stream in the title without having to say and more. But all the topics from left to right, from BET all the way down to Tyre Nichols. I already saw some people left which topic they're looking forward to me talking about today, but I am curious to know, what are y'all looking forward to the most of me talking about today? I hope everybody had a good week. I know that I did. It's crazy also today because I must have slept really good because I woke up today feeling like it was Sunday for some reason. Like I felt like I was asleep for a couple days rather than just overnight. I don't know if anyone else has had that feeling before, but maybe it's just because I was probably tired or my body was saying, look, let me just keep you like at bay for a little bit. Just go to sleep and stay asleep for as long as you possibly can. But I felt like I slept like the regular time, but I still felt like I slept longer than what I was supposed to the point where I'm feeling like it's a whole 2 days later, 2 or 3 days later. Let's see who else do we have in here. Carlton Way, what's going on? What's going on, Val? We just waiting for your twin to come up in here, then the set will be complete. All right, so I'm looking at the chat and I'm seeing people they're saying Brett Favre. I'm seeing Tyre Nichols. I'm seeing BET. I'm seeing a lot of Brett Favre's. And so I know a lot of y'all can't wait for me to talk about the welfare king, especially since I hadn't talked about him in a while, because there wasn't really that many stories out there to talk about pertaining to him. They were doing all these other little small stories that we didn't care about instead of what we really wanted to talk about. And then this story just kind of fell in my lap, and I said, yep, this is perfect. Let me go ahead and add that on in here. So we got chosen one up. There's Carla. So Val and Carla, aka the Troublemint twins, are in the building. You ain't gonna see one without the other. Let's see, got chosen one up in here. Welcome, welcome. It's 98 people in here so far. If y'all can hit the like button if you haven't done so already, I would greatly appreciate it. We got Tawana Cook in here. Shout out to her. Going to give it about one more minute and we're going to go ahead and get started. What's going on, Gregory and David O? And shout out to Denise for being the first contributor today on the stream with the $10 super chat. Denise, I greatly appreciate it. Okay, it is officially 6:10. So now we are going to go ahead and get started with the show. Let me see where am I starting at first. We're going to start right here. So we're going to be talking about this sale, so-called, that BET was supposed to make an offer to with Tyler Perry, that Tyler Perry ended up turning down because he felt that was too much money. I felt it was too much money too. But remember, a couple months ago, there was a lot of rumors to the point where it started trending on what used to be Twitter. And a lot of people were buying into, oh, Tyler Perry bought BET. We saw BET trending. We saw Tyler Perry trending. It kept trending to the point where a lot of people actually believed that he bought it. And I'm going to be honest. I can be honest and hold myself accountable. I slightly fell for it. But I didn't go all the way in for like, wow, Tyler Perry actually did it. But as it has come out recently, as in yesterday, that did not happen. Because as you can see right here, it says Paramount scraps BET $3 billion auction of BET. All right, can y'all hear me now? Put a one in the chat if y'all can hear me. All right, I don't know what happened. For some reason, the screen just froze where it was at, and then for some reason, my mouse wasn't lighting up or wasn't lit, so I had to unplug the mouse from my computer and plug it back in. And I mistakenly unplugged the mic instead of the mouse. So I'm glad that that everybody can hear me now. I was like, this is a bad time for this to happen, but we back at it. So we're going to start right here. So where I left off was talking about BET and Tyler Perry potentially buying BET. It was some other names that was in there as well. I believe Diddy's name was in there. Byron Allen's name was in there. But, really everybody was focusing on Tyler Perry. And I believe Tyler Perry had offered them like $2 billion, but Paramount was asking for $3 billion. And Tyler Perry was like, I'm not paying you $3 billion for this network, even though I have some of my shows on here between BET itself and BET Plus, which is the streaming service. I'm not paying you $3 billion for this platform. So that deal is off the table. And now it's still in the hands of Paramount. I'm willing to bet that this was all set up from the beginning because I believe they didn't even want this man to buy it to begin with. But I'm going to go ahead and read the article. Now, keep this in mind. BET has not been black owned since Bob Johnson, and he sold it back in 2000. So BET hasn't been black owned for 23 years and counting. But let's see what they're talking about. Paramount Global has scrapped an auction of Black Entertainment Group as bids from prospective buyers, including media mogul Tyler Perry, were disappointing, sources told The Post. The auction of BET, which operates cable channels VH1, BET, and streaming service BET Plus, kicked off earlier this summer, but hit a roadblock after Medea creator Perry refused to raise his $2 billion bid to meet Paramount's asking price of $3 billion, The Post previously reported. BET's owner, Paramount Global, quietly notified bidders late Wednesday that it had canceled the sale. We made this decision because the benefits of maintaining a majority stake in BET Media Group creates more value for Paramount than any of the proposals we received. The source noted that Paramount has been looking for a deal which could return the asset to black ownership with a party that could be a good partner and responsible steward of the assets in the mission, but nevertheless came up. Paramount also had hoped for a deal that would result in meaningful deleveraging of Paramount's balance sheet, according to the source. While bids fell short, there are still significant synergies between BET and the rest of Paramount in distribution to local TV affiliates, advertising, and streaming. A spokesman for Paramount Global declined to comment. Paramount's sell-side bank JP Morgan was expected to offer financing to suitors when the auction started and then failed to do so, raising questions about the strength of the BET group. Two sources close to the situation told The Post. Paramount then missed its forecast for BET's earnings during the auction process, raising more questions. Sources said Byron Allen, the comedian turned media mogul who has amassed a broadcasting empire that includes the Weather Channel, emerged late in the auction as the top bidder with an offer worth roughly $3 billion. Now, peep that. They were asking for $3 billion. They said Byron Allen had roughly around $3 billion to offer them, but they didn't even take him on his offer. That says a lot right there. It says, nevertheless, Paramount did not engage Allen in high-level talks after he made his bid last month, a source close to the situation told The Post. Paramount did not want to sell BET to Byron Allen, a source at the company said, pointing to Allen's lack of committed financing. Well, that's their reasoning that they gave right there. It says Allen's lack of committed financing. It said, over the last few weeks, the company had been pushing Perry, who already owns a 25% stake in BET streaming service BET Plus, to increase his offer. Reps for Perry did not respond for requests seeking comment. Allen declined to comment. Sources said Allen received letters from banks saying they are confident they will finance the offer, which is at well more than a 12 times earning before interest, taxes, and depreciation and amortization multiple after they conducted more due diligence. Paramount is meanwhile facing questions including the true value of the company and its many assets, which include MTV, CBS, Movie Studio, Paramount Pictures, and Nickelodeon. Earlier this month, Paramount sold Simon & Schuster for a lower than expected price tag of $1.6 billion to private equity firm KKR. Paramount had previously tried to sell Simon & Schuster to book publisher Penguin Random House for $2.2 billion, but the sale was blocked by a federal judge on antitrust grounds. Sources expect Paramount to use the proceeds from the sale of the 99-year-old book publisher to pay down debt, as would a sale of BET. Insiders expect the company to hold on to BET until the advertising market improves, and then it will be put up for sale again. The decision to drop the sale of BET follows Paramount's second quarter earnings report, in which the media giant reported a loss of $424 million for the 3 months leading up to June 30th due to losses in its streaming division. Second quarter revenue was $7.6 billion. So let me see what y'all are talking about in the chat. Dynasty says they don't want, excuse me, they don't want black ownership, but minstrel shows. Donna also says I haven't watched BT since 106 and Park with AJ and Free. That means you haven't watched it in years, because AJ and Free, they was off of 106 and Park. I think they left in like 04, I think. That's what I really think it boils down to. They don't want it really in the hands of a black person. And I think Tyler Perry, being the businessman that he is, he knows the value of that company, especially since he has a 25% stake in it, and he wasn't willing to pay no $3 billion for it. The fact that he wasn't willing to pay $3 billion for it, and they wanted $3 billion out of him, and they wasn't getting that $3 billion out of Byron Allen, even though Byron Allen was willing to pay for it, and they didn't want to give it to him, says a lot. Chosen One said BET should have never been sold. John Guillory said I only watched the BET reruns on BET. I remember they had the Martin reunion on BET last year. That was pretty good. Oh, Buzzer Cam and somebody said that AJ and Free left in 05. Okay. I mean, what's a year difference? It's still a long time ago. Yeah, but something is kind of fishy about this deal. But I'm gonna keep my eye on this, because I'm curious now, when it goes back up for sale, who's going to try to put their bid in as far as this goes. What I found to be very interesting, though, is based on what I've gathered or what I've seen from those who did put their bid in, it was mainly only black people, black men in particular, that was putting up bids. I didn't really see anybody else or any kind of, what I would like to say, outsider trying to throw their bid in for this. But yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye on this, because I'm curious to know, when they open this sale back up, who's gonna throw their hat in the ring then. But like, I'm agreeing with some of y'all are saying in the chat, I truly believe they don't want BET back in the hands of a black person. It's been out of black hands for 23 years now. That's a long time. That's 2 decades. That's 2 decades and 3 years. That's a long time. But let's go ahead and move on to the next story, which is the one that everybody has been wanting me to talk about, based on which I was talking about in the chat. And that is the welfare king himself, Brett Favre. I know I haven't done an update about Brett Favre in a minute. Like I said before in the beginning of the stream, it's because there really hasn't been any news stories out there about him as far as this subject matter. They've mentioned some other things, but we ain't here to talk about that as it pertains to him. We know what we're here to talk about. So the update with Brett Favre is that it says Mississippi Supreme Court will not dismiss former NFL quarterback Brett Favre from the welfare scheme civil lawsuit. And what gets me is that, yes, I'm glad they're still holding on to him not being released from this, no matter how many times he and his lawyers continue to try to get him dropped from what's going on. However, they still have yet to charge him with anything. It's like y'all know he's guilty of what he did, but you're refusing to charge him with anything. Like y'all know his hands are dirty. But let's see what they're talking about. The Mississippi Supreme Court said it will not dismiss the former NFL quarterback Brett Favre from a civil lawsuit filed by the state seeking to recoup millions of dollars distributed as part of what the state calls a statewide welfare fraud scheme. The three-justice panel issued an order denying Favre's appeal on Wednesday. CNN has reached out to Favre's representation for comment. I wonder how many appeals Brett Favre has. That's a question that ever since I've been following this story that I've never asked. I wonder how many appeals Brett Favre has. And I wonder if what they're doing is, are they waiting for his appeals to run out before they go in for the charge? That's the only thing I can break it down to, is they're probably waiting for all of his appeals to run out. And then they said, now we can charge him. But either way, I still feel like even with that, they still should charge him with something, or should I say some things, because in my opinion, he has more than one charge to his name. Favre's attorney said the state's Supreme Court should allow Favre to be removed from the lawsuit because he received no financial benefit from the transfer of money from the Mississippi Department of Human Services to the athletic department of the University of Southern Mississippi, his alma mater. They still keeping up with this lie, even though they have the receipts. If y'all want to know what PC privilege and PC delusion looks like, I present to you Exhibit A in just that statement. Every time I do an update talking about Brett Favre, it always has some kind of statement that's closely linked to what I just read. They argue dismissing Favre as a defendant will prevent further substantial and irreparable harm to Favre's reputation generated by public officials seizing on meritless claims to attract public attention. In 2020, a state audit found that more than $77 million was improperly used from the welfare program meant for the neediest families in Mississippi, including spending on expensive cars, a private school, and pet projects of celebrities and the politically connected. Portion of the money were used to build a volleyball facility at the University of Southern Mississippi, as well as to invest in a company that was seeking to develop a concussion drug, a cause that Favre supported. According to the state's lawsuit, Favre was the largest individual outside investor and holder of a corporate stock. Favre has not been charged criminally in the welfare fraud scheme. He is, however, one of more than 36 people and entities named in the civil suit brought by the state to recover some of the funds. And see, that's the part right there. And that's why I've kind of scaled, like, probably from this point forward, after this, I probably won't do another update on Brett Favre until he has been charged with something. Because literally the last couple of updates, if y'all been following the playlist, they've all read kind of the same thing. He goes to court, him and his team goes to court. They try to appeal to get him removed from the suit. The judge always turns it down. They go back. Then a couple weeks later, a month later, when they think the dust settles and nobody's paying attention, they go back and do the same thing and they get the same result. It's like the definition of insanity. So until they charge Favre with criminal action for what he did, this might be the last update I do, unless something else significantly new changes that's outside of a charge. Because otherwise, it's literally a circular thing here. That's literally what it's become. So I'm not even going to read too much further into that, because it's pretty much all saying the same thing that I've talked about over and over and over in previous updates as it pertains to Brett Favre. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and just move on to the next story. And this next story is a rather sad story right here, involving this teenager, 17 years old. His name is Caleb Wright, who collapsed and died during a pickup game. 17 years old. Now, I know what a lot of people were saying when this story first came out, but I'm not going to jump the gun and I'm not going to hop on that bandwagon. And y'all know, for those of you who have heard of this story, know exactly what people have been saying when this happens. I don't know all the details of what happened with this kid, but I do know he unfortunately lost his life. But it says Caleb White, 17-year-old student athlete from Pinson, Alabama, died Thursday after suffering a medical emergency at school. And this was last Thursday, by the way. White's death was announced by the Alabama High School Athletic Association. White, a senior all-state point guard at Pinson Valley High School, collapsed while playing a pickup basketball game with teammates. He received life-saving efforts at the school before being taken to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Caleb's family, his classmates and basketball team, and extended school family. AHSAA Executive Director Alvin Briggs said he was an outstanding student athlete who played in the North-South All-Star basketball game last month. He was an outstanding student athlete and role model. And this is a picture of him right here, just in case none of you have seen what he looks like. White's mother, Charlotte, told Alabama.com that she was told her son died from cardiac arrest. Now, that's the interesting part. Cardiac arrest. Who recently suffered cardiac arrest and is like the same age or around the same age as this kid was? I think somebody put it in the chat already. There was a person around the same age as him who just recently suffered cardiac arrest, but thankfully they're still alive. They play basketball too. As a matter of fact, their dad is a very famous NBA player for the Lakers. I think I've given you all the hints I can give for those of y'all who are unaware. Yep, LeBron James Jr., aka Bronny James. It's like the same scenario. And relatively close too, because I believe Bronny James, that happened last month. This happened this month. Both played basketball, both around the same age. I think Bronny is like 18, if I'm not mistaken. He was 17. It's some wild stuff here. That's all I'm gonna say. An autopsy was set for Friday. Pinson Mayor Joe Cochran posted on social media about White's death, and Pinson Valley Principal Michael Turner said counseling will be available to students and staff in the coming days. Our heartfelt condolences also go out to the administration and faculty at Pinson Valley. Pray they find the strength needed during this time of grief, Briggs added. White averaged 20.9 points a game, 3.8 rebounds, 3.1 assists, and 1.9 steals as a junior when he was a finalist for the Alabama Sports Writers Association Class 6A Player of the Year. Condolences go out to this man's family, his friends and everything. 17 years old. I couldn't imagine being anyone close to him and how devastated they had to be to hear that bit of news. But it's scary to know that people are getting these kinds of illnesses that either lead to lifetime problems or worse, in his case, death, at very young ages now. When I was this kid's age, when I was hearing about people having cardiac arrest, they were around my parents' age now. For the most part, never in a million years would I ever think about seeing or hearing about someone around my age suffering from a cardiac arrest, whether they survived it or not. Now, I do know someone or knew someone personally who I went to school with who I think they were type 2 diabetic. So they were definitely around my age. And as ironically, we had the same name, to be honest. That's kind of what made us kind of close. One of the scariest things that I saw with him was when we was in our little common area in the dorm we were in, and he was just sitting there with his head down. I'm thinking maybe he's just sleeping. And like people was calling his name to wake, to wake him up, and he wasn't moving. And I'm like, oh my God, like what's going on here? Turns out he fell into a diabetic coma, like right there in the room, like sat there, like you would have never known. But the thing is, I forgot that he did. And that's actually when I found out that he had diabetes. And then a few years later, after I graduated, because I don't think he graduated with us. I think he ended up leaving the school. A couple years later, I found out that he had passed away. So, that's like just crazy how a lot of people who are getting these illnesses that you think people at one point had to be a certain age to get, or stuff is happening to them younger and younger. Because to hear someone getting cardiac arrest at this age when I was 17 was uncommon and unheard of. Spidey said you type 1. So I'm assuming, Spidey, I'm assuming that you're on some kind of medication. I'm assuming. I'm not going to thought I'll say that you aren't, but I'm just assuming that you are. But either way, definitely condolences to this man's family. Very young. He looked like he definitely would have had a bright future ahead of him. Oh, okay, so you're on insulin. Okay. But yeah, let's move on to the next topic. Now, this topic right here that I'm about to talk about, one of my subscribers had asked me, could I talk about this? And I knew I wouldn't have had enough time to squeeze it in as a video. So I said, let me just go ahead and put it into the live stream. Now, I'm assuming that everyone in here has heard the name Edward Blum before, and his links, or his crusade, I should say, against affirmative action. He's been on that crusade since the 90s. But now his crusade against affirmative action has now hit a particular group. And that particular group is Black women, where he is now taking his crusade to go after this Black Women's Venture Capital Fund, because he has decided it's attached to affirmative action. And this guy's literally like Thanos with the gauntlet. And whenever he snapped his fingers, anything attached to affirmative action is slowly but surely getting blipped out of existence. But we about to see what they talking about right here. And I know Harvey talked about this story on his channel. So if y'all seen his video on it, then you already know what this story is about. The founder of the group that pushed for the eventual dismantling of affirmative action by the Supreme Court is now suing a Black women-led venture capital fund. Edward Blum is staunchly against affirmative action. He is suing Fearless Fund, an Atlanta-based venture capital fund that supports small business owned by Black women through his nonprofit American Alliance for Equal Rights. The group describes itself as a nationwide membership organization dedicated to challenging distinction and preferences made on the basis of race and ethnicity. The lawsuit was filed in federal court in Atlanta. It alleges by making Black women the only eligible applicants for its $20,000 grant, the Fearless Fund is violating Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. The law prohibits racial bias in private contracts. So basically, because it's elevating stuff, or elevating business funds for Black women, Edward Blum feels that it's a violation, and that it should either qualify for all women, no matter what their race is. Keep in mind, these are the same people that claim they don't see race, but when it comes to money, they'll throw race in there all the time. But if it doesn't qualify for all women, then you don't get nothing at all. Let me go ahead and read what this tweet says. It says, why are three Black women investors who operate a new microfund that invests in business created by women? Oh my God, they had to say women of color, but this person is not Black, so I expect them to say that, but unfortunately some Black people say it. We'll say by Black women being sued for awarding grant money to Black women entrepreneurs. Hold on. You said invest in businesses created by women of color, and then it says awarding grant money to Black women entrepreneurs. You mean to tell me you just couldn't say Black women in your C point? Anyway, it says there are so many other efforts that are much better funded and well known who also award financial grants to all kinds of people that face systemic barriers based on race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, etc., AAPI, women, the LGBTQ plus, etc. Then it goes on to read, According to TechCrunch, the Civil Rights Act was the first piece of federal civil rights legislation passed in the U.S. enacted to guarantee that contracts would be honored regardless of race. At the time, it was widely held at the time that the market was open to everyone, but it wasn't really. In 2019, three influential Black women came together to found Fearless Fund. According to their website, famous actress Keisha Knight Pulliam, entrepreneur Arian Simone, and corporate executive Ayanna Parsons set up Fearless Fund to address the gap that exists in venture capital funding for, y'all, this is what the article says. It says WOC, but we know what that means. But I'm going to say Black women-led businesses, and to finally push the needle on the abysmal statistics that drive the current narrative for Black women-led businesses today. Fearless Fund has backed more than 40 businesses owned and operated by Black women. One of their portfolios even includes a business owned by the High Priestess Witch herself, Gabrielle Union. According to a report from Reuters, Blum and the Texas-based American Alliance for Equal Rights have said some of the group's approximately 60 members, white and Asian American, have been excluded from the grant program due to their race. Now they want to do the crocodile tears thing. And what if I told y'all? I don't know if I told y'all or somebody else. Notice that they are going to, if y'all haven't peeped it already, are going to start lumping white people and Asians together. Sort of like how they love to lump and do the whole black and brown thing. They're going to start doing that with them, because this is not the first and most likely not the last time that I will see white and Asian American in a situation like this where they're trying to throw a wrench into whatever Black people are doing specifically for themselves, or they're going to try to make themselves seem like they're being discriminated against. If y'all remember when I did that live stream talking about Candace Owens, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Charlie Kirk, and the part when I got to Charlie Kirk, he kept mentioning whites and Asians, whites and Asians, whites and Asians. He kept doing that a lot. You're going to continue to start going forward. You're going to start hearing that quite often, because they're trying to create a link between the two. Well, to benefit one more so than the other, but the other is probably going to benefit in some sort of way, but not more than the first, if you get what I mean. Blum has also promised in previous interviews to continue. And before I go any further, it's funny that they want to talk about Asian Americans being whites and Asian Americans being discriminated against when they were the two biggest groups that benefited from affirmative action to begin with, especially white women. In the words of Harvey, they got a lot of nerve. Blum has also promised in previous interviews to continue to pursue lawsuits of this nature, and like the case that helped topple affirmative action through his nonprofit in a bid to challenge race-based policies. The venture capitalist Mandela S.H. Dixon has commented on the matter, calling it harmful. In a series of tweets, Dixon shared that this lawsuit is set to establish a dangerous precedent. It's not what this lawyer is attempting to do that's so harmful. It's also who he is strategically cherry picking for target practice. He's aiming to set a precedent, and who he has chosen to make an example of says so much. We've seen his agenda already, she wrote. Some of the relief that Blum's nonprofit is seeking in the suit includes a declaratory judgment that defendants' Fearless Strivers grant contest violates Section 1981, a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction barring defendants from closing the fourth application period, selecting grant recipients, or enforcing their racially discriminatory eligibility criteria for the Fearless Strivers grant contest, and a permanent injunction barring defendants from enforcing their racially discriminatory eligibility criteria for the program. What's going on, talking and grumping? But yeah, the PC and the Asian American community, they're forming an alliance, if they haven't done so already, probably have, to get rid of everything that we got going on. Because keep in mind, whenever they were saying they were trying to get rid of affirmative action because of, people shouldn't get in based on their race and whatnot, even though they benefited the most from it. Like, talk about, you literally shot yourself in the foot to throw stones at us when we didn't benefit from affirmative action on a huge level compared to PC and the ones who destroyed it. It's the weirdest paradigm. It just really is. But notice how they love to always tell us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. Even though we don't listen to that nonsense because we're going to do our thing regardless. Let's hypothetically say we go along with it and we do it. This always ends up happening because they need us to be dependent on them. So when they be talking about they don't see color, don't fall for that crap. But I know I'm dealing with intelligent people in this chat. I feel like I don't need to tell y'all that. That's like preaching to the choir. But I just wanted to bring that to y'all because I know somebody had wanted me to talk about it. I hope they're in the chat watching right now because I forgot who it was that had brought it, who said they wanted me to talk about it. If not, hopefully they catch the playback. But let's move on to the next story right here. And we're going to be talking about this Goon Squad. Put a 1 in the chat if you heard about this Goon Squad. No, as a matter of fact, don't put a 1, put a chair. Put a chair in the chat if you've heard of this Goon Squad. I should see a lot of them. And shout out to Afro Elite because I know he did I think he did a live stream talking about this on his channel last night. Now, I didn't get an opportunity to talk about this in the form of a pre-recorded video when this first happened, but I definitely heard about it. So that Goon Squad that consisted of 6 PC cops versus 2 black men, they all pleaded guilty to what they did. And I know why they pleaded guilty, because they're looking for a plea deal. We know how this process goes. Don't think that just because they pleaded guilty means that they'll be found guilty. And if they are found guilty, they're going to most likely get a lesser charge than what they should. They're going for the plea deal. But I'm going to read this article coming from People. It says, I thought I was dead, victims of Mississippi Goon Squad. And shout out to Retro Gemini 99 for the $5 super chat. He said, B1, thanks to you and the new Black Media for all you guys do. I appreciate it, and I'm glad that you tune in. I definitely greatly appreciate it. It says, victims of the Mississippi Goon Squad officers recount racist torture and abuse. Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker were beaten, tasered, and waterboarded during their 2-hour ordeal. 2-hour ordeal. The victims of 6 Mississippi ex-terrorists, let's just call it what it is, 6 Mississippi domestic terrorists who called themselves the Goon Squad, are speaking out about the torture, abuse, and racial taunts they endured that led to the officers' criminal convictions. In an interview with People, Michael Jenkins, age 32, and Eddie Terrell Parker, age 35, who are black, say they are still suffering from shock after their 2-hour ordeal with the white terrorists who broke into the home they were staying in Braxton on January 24th. That's why this story got kind of buried, because Tyre Nichols happened around the same time. It happened a couple weeks before, but the Tyre Nichols story kind of overshadowed this. That's why this story didn't get that much traction. It did get through or punched through a little bit, but that Tyre Nichols story was so heavily pushed that if you blinked on this story, you would have missed it. During the encounter, Jenkins was shot in the mouth by one of the terrorists. The bullet lacerated Jenkins' tongue, broke his jaw, and exited out of his neck. He's very lucky to be alive. According to the federal criminal complaint obtained by People, I thought I was dead. Jenkins tells People, I was asking Eddie when they shot me. I said, bro, I'm dying. Yeah, I thought I was dead. They killed me, but I didn't die. They killed me. I just did not die. Parker, who describes the attack as a catastrophe as well as brutal, says the possibility of getting killed was the only thing that was on my mind at the end. We were complying with everything they wanted, he says, which doesn't mean a damn thing, as we already know. It wasn't nothing that we could do to stop it. I mean, it was bound to happen. At the end, I did say we were about to die. And here's the 6 terrorists right here. They look like they stink, especially this one right here. This one looks like he's related to Bowser. This guy looks like Bruce Willis and Stone Cold Steve Austin did the fusion dance, and out came this prick. This guy looks like he's kin to Porky Pig. And I can't really think of these other two, but they look like they were born out of incest. He said, zoom in. There's their pictures. I hope y'all didn't eat anything, because just looking at this makes you want to throw up. But this is all of them right here. And there's their names right there at the bottom. Brett McAlpin, Hunter Elward, Daniel Opdyke, Jeffrey Middleton, Christian Deadmon, and Joshua Hartfield. But that is them right there. Okay, y'all have already seen it. Jenkins and Parkers, who have filed a $400 million federal civil rights lawsuit against the officers, and they should get all of it, were staying at the home of Parker's childhood friend and helping with her care at the time of the incident. According to the federal complaint, Rankin County Sheriff's officers, I'm not reading their names again, the terrorists, went to the home after Brett McAlpin, the chief investigator with the Rankin County Sheriff's Office, got a call from his white neighbor who complained about 2 black men, quote unquote, staying at the property. There it is. What did I tell y'all about the how they are their ancestors? What have I told y'all? This is straight out of the playbook. Got a call from the white neighbor who complained about 2 black men staying at the property. Because, just being somewhere, there has to be some level of suspicion. Spidey, why did you time out OT Lungs? He didn't need to be timed out. He wasn't trolling. OT, if you still listening to this, my bad. They probably thought you was trolling. But yeah, to Spidey, he wasn't trolling. You didn't have to time him out. The officers broke into the home, tasered and handcuffed the 2 men, and berated them with racist slurs. They accused them of taking advantage of the white woman who owned the house. Again, when I tell y'all they are their ancestors, believe me when I say that. One of the officers grabbed a sex toy from one of the bedrooms and mounted it on top of a BB gun and forced the... I can't read that. Y'all gonna have to read that. I can't read that. I cannot read that. I'm just gonna bypass and pretend I didn't even see that. The men were also subjected to multiple tasings, were beaten and waterboarded, and forced to take showers together to wash away evidence of abuse. The officers then concocted a false story to cover up the crimes. On Monday, the officers pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit obstruction of justice, among other state charges. In addition, the 6 terrorists pleaded guilty to federal charges last week, stemming from the same incident. I feel a small relief in a small way, says Parker. I feel a bit of pressure off me. There's no relief that's going to make it where I'm not the way I was before all of this. I'm still constantly waking up, looking around, and not being able to sleep. It's a day-to-day challenge, trying to not make every day about that. I'm still in survival mode. Keep in mind, it's August. This happened at the end of January. Imagine what they're going to feel like when the 1-year anniversary rolls around on January 24th, 2024. all of that's going to come right back. All that's going to come rushing right back. Jenkins says he felt great when the officers entered their guilty pleas. Jenkins' mother, Mary, says she feels that her son and Parker have been vindicated. Seeing them come into court in shackles made me feel better about the situation. She tells people, don't get too hyped, right? Don't get too excited. They need, in my opinion, for what they did and for what I had to skim through and did not read verbally, they need the worst punishment possible. Put them in Gen Pop and let them do to them what they did to these two men, if not worse. It goes on to say, but right now, this is the first step. I would like to see what happened to Michael and Sorrell change the mindset of people here in Mississippi, but I don't expect that to happen. And the irony is that it happened in Mississippi. Although I would like for it to happen, her son said, she says, is still suffering. My son has night sweats. How could you sleep at night when you've been so traumatized? He will never be the same. He will never be fine. He may be better, but the old Michael will never be the same, and the old Terrell will never be the same. That is messed up. Because I didn't know they did all of that. I'm gonna be honest. I knew about him being shot in the mouth. I knew about that. I thought that was as bad as it went. And it was, because that could have took his life. But I didn't know about that other part that I did not read. But the fact that that's what they did, that, like I said, they are their ancestors. I don't think I can put it any more plainly than that. Because their ancestors did enacted it in the same vein, in straight up complete savagery. But they want to say that they are the moral code of society. All I think about when I was almost about to read it, but I did see it, was what happened to what's his name in New York, the one with the broomstick. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Put his name in the chat. All I could think about was the broomstick. That's what I thought about. Okay, I'm seeing two different names. I'm seeing Amadou Diallo, and then I'm seeing Abner Louima. I'm seeing two different names. So it's Amadou Diallo. Okay. No, oh no, it was Abner Louima. It was Abner Louima. Thank you for the correction. that was I was not expecting to see that. Because I'm gonna be honest, when I pull these articles up to present to y'all on these streams, a lot of the times I don't skim through them. I just go based off of the title or maybe the more recent one, and then I go through it. Like that part I wasn't expecting to see. I was not expecting to see that, and I couldn't bring myself to read it. But we'll be keeping an eye out on this story right here to see what goes forward. But the next story I wanted to talk about is a rather sad one, an unfortunate one. How many of y'all heard of this little girl by the name of Jenesis Dockery? If the name Jenesis Dockery sounds familiar to you, put a 1 in the chat. If it's not familiar to you, put a 2. Okay, Spidey put a 2. Denise put 1. Dezimus put 2. DSB said 1, 2. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of 2s. And I'm not surprised by that, because this is a story that went way under the radar. And I wouldn't have known about it unless someone didn't send this story to me on Twitter. But basically what happened is you had this 8-year-old girl by the name of Jenesis Dockery. She was killed. She was shot on July 25th, and then she died on July 27th. Now, this little girl, she would be classified as, by many, as biracial. She had a white mother and a black father. And she was killed by an 11-year-old white boy. And basically the story goes that she went over to this kid's house, or her parents or someone allowed her to go over to this kid's house, and the kid shot her. and she died a couple days later. That's just a brief summary of the story. It's a little bit more to it, but that's just the overall summary of it. A juvenile was arrested and charged with the fatal shooting of Jenesis Dockery, an 8-year-old girl who, according to her family, was shot while she was at her babysitter's house. So she was being babysat by, I'm assuming, the mother of the child that killed her. In Fayetteville, North Carolina on July 25th, Jenesis was transported to a hospital where she died 2 days later. Jenesis' funeral was held last Wednesday, and before charges were filed, her family had been calling for justice and accountability since her death on July 27th. The Cumberland County Sheriff's Office told ABC News in a statement on Tuesday that Special Victims Unit detectives detained the juvenile offender charged with the shooting on August 11th, and the juvenile is now in the custody of the Department of Juvenile Justice DJJ. Now, peep that. This kid shot her on July 25th. She dies July 27th, and they don't arrest him until the 11th, which was last week. So they didn't get him until pretty much 2 weeks later. And we don't know the identity of this kid. And I feel like we should, considering he did take someone's life. I don't care if he is a minor. It says, this has been a horrible nightmare. Still doesn't feel real. Jenesis' father, Dockery, said during a press conference on Thursday. It's hard to put into words how we're trying to navigate 3 weeks later for something to be done. We wore orange pins on the day we buried our daughter for gun violence awareness, because as much as we want justice for our daughter, this is something no parent should ever have to do. So this is actually a picture of her. I think there's another picture in here of her that's more clear, and you'll be able to get a more clear imagery of her. According to the family, Dockery said that he dropped off Jenesis and her 5-year-old sister on July 25th at the home of a longtime friend of the family who also served as the family's babysitter. But less than an hour later, Dockery received a phone call from the babysitter who said that Jenesis was shot in the head by the babysitter's 11-year-old son. Authorities have not, first off, where did the son get the gun from? Now I'm going to be questioning the babysitter, because apparently this gun had to be the babysitter's, or if she was married, her husband. So how did your son get access to this gun? That means it was out in the open, or he knew where it was and how to get it. They need to bring the babysitter in for investigation. Authorities have not identified the babysitter, and they have also not indicated the juvenile's age. But they pretty much already said he's 11. The juvenile's arrest on August 11th came after the sheriff's office submitted a complaint to the Division of Juvenile Justice on August 10th, alleging that 2 counts of larceny of a firearm and the charge of a manslaughter were warranted, according to a press release from the sheriff's office. Asked to confirm the charges against the juvenile, a spokesperson for the Division of Juvenile Justice declined to provide more details, telling ABC News in a statement on Tuesday, due to North Carolina's juvenile confidentiality laws, we were unable to share information regarding any juvenile and potential complaints and charges filed against them. Now, here's a more clear picture of the girl for y'all to see right here. The other one was kind of choppy. The Cumberland County Sheriff's Office said that deputies responded at 3:26 p.m. on July 25th to a shooting at the 3300 block Mercedes Drive in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where they found an unresponsive juvenile with a gunshot wound. The juvenile, who was identified by the Sheriff's Office on July 27th as Jenesis Dockery, died from her injuries 2 days later after the shooting. According to the family, Jenesis Dockery was transported to the Cape Fear Valley Hospital at UNC Chapel Hill, but despite the efforts of doctors, she died. Dockery family attorney Harry Daniels said during the press conference on Thursday that although there can be no real justice because we cannot go back in time and bring back Jenesis, there has to be accountability for her killing. This Dockery family ain't going anywhere. They're not going away. This community of Fayetteville support and stand by this family. They're not going anywhere. They're going to get justice for their child. A spokesperson for the sheriff's office told ABC News that Jenesis' fatal shooting is an open investigation and did not comment on how a juvenile got access to a gun and whether any adults will be charged in incidents. Well, that was a question I was asking before. How did this kid get that gun? It had to be in an area where he was familiar with, and it was out in the open, and that's how he got it. And he shot this girl in the head. This was a headshot. And furthermore, I want to know the distance of that shot. Was he point blank range? Like, was he right? Was the barrel like on her head, or was it a little bit further back? Because I refuse. I refuse to believe he shot her from across the room, or like she was standing at the end of a hallway and he just, aimed it perfectly. But either way, this little girl is dead. And like they said, there has to be some accountability to be held for the kid that shot and killed her and for the babysitter that was there. Like I said, if you're going to have a firearm in your home, you need to put it in a place and in a safe, in a spot that your kids, and you have kids, where your kids don't know where it's at. Now, if you decide that, when your kids are older and they're probably, still living with you, like maybe they're like, maybe 16 or whatever, and maybe they're at the age where they can stay home by themselves and say that you go away for the weekend or whatever, and you decide to give them the passcode for protection just in case something happens, then that's when you do that. But all these stories I've heard over the years where stuff like this has happened is mainly due because of negligence on these adults who have kids who leave their guns out in the open, or they tell them where the safe is. They don't lock it or anything like that. They can just go in there, get it, put the bullets in, whatever, and go to work. Because he had to have known where that gun was at to get it. He had to have known. Black Justice said he knew the combination with a gun was most likely. Sad story either way. Let's move on to the next story. Now, this next story right here is an update to a story that I talked about on my channel last year. And when I saw just a little bit of the details and I saw the cop's name, I said, wait a minute, this name, Luis Santiago, sounds so familiar. And what I did was I typed my name into the YouTube search bar and put Luis Santiago behind it. And sure enough, the video that this update is related to is up on the channel. If y'all want to know what this story is really about, well, first off, get through this, and then you can go back and look at the video that I did over a year ago on this story when it first happened. So this is actually an update to this story where it says a New Jersey cop was sentenced to prison for killing a nurse with the car and driving the body home. Like this whole story played out like something in a movie. Like, hopefully this story goes into the details of it. If not, again, I talked about it in a video that I did over a year ago, same story, and it goes into the details about it on there. But it says, in an emotional court hearing, Luis Santiago apologized to the family of Damian Dimka, and the victim's father offered forgiveness to the ex-Newark police officer. It says a former New Jersey officer was sentenced Wednesday to 5 years in prison, which he should have got more, for striking and killing a nurse with his car, driving the body home, and then returning to the scene after speaking to his parents. That right there is an instant mind blower. Like, what the hell? You ran somebody over and then took the body off the ground, took it home, and then drove back. Luis Santiago, age 26, had pleaded guilty to 3 felony counts as well as driving while intoxicated in connection with the crash that killed Damian Dimka on November 1st, 2021. During an emotional hearing in Essex County Court in Newark, Santiago apologized to Dimka's family, and the victim's father offered forgiveness to the former Newark police officer. I forgive you, boy. I can't pronounce this man's name, but this is the father right here. He said, looking directly at Santiago, I understand you are a young person. I lost my son. Thank God you're still alive. So I want black people to hear me here. This is not a black person doing the forgiveness thing right here. This is somebody else. Because a lot of people always think it's just black people that do the forgive thing. It is not all the time. Because there's no way you could have did this to my child and I would sit up in that court and forgive you. There's no way. He goes on to say, he says, and you have a chance to fix your life. I will cross my fingers for you. Keep in mind that this dude is 26. He got sentenced to 5 years. That means he will be 31 or maybe 32, depending on, if he already has time served. Well, if he has time served, he'll be out before he's 31. But we'll just say 31 when he gets out. That's a weak sentence for what this dude did. Ms. Lily said, I'm stuck what he did, what he take the body for. Right. As a matter of fact, like I said, if you go watch the video that I did about this, I think it goes into detail about that. It was so weird. I don't know why he did it. Santiago was off duty and drunk when he crashed into Dimka about 3 a.m. after drifting into the shoulder of the Garden State Parkway. Dimka was still dressed in his Halloween outfit after a night of partying. Instead of rendering aid or calling the police, Santiago and his passenger Alberto Guzman loaded the victim's body into the back of the car and drove to Santiago's home in nearby Bloomfield. After speaking to his mother Annette and father Luis, who was a lieutenant with the Newark Police Department, Santiago drove Dimka's body back to the scene. Dimka, aged 29, who was born in Poland and grew up in Garfield, New Jersey, was pronounced dead at 5:27 a.m., roughly 2.5 hours after he was hit. It's unclear why he was walking along the busy highway. The cause of death was blunt force trauma, according to a spokeswoman for the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. To Damien's family and friends, I know nothing I will say will ease your pain and suffering, but I am truly sorry, Santiago said in court. I didn't mean this. This was an accident. My actions on that night and early morning were inexcusable, he added. As an officer of the law, I should have never been behind the wheel after consuming alcohol. I should have acted accordingly after realizing what was going on, but I completely panicked. So you panicked in so much that you actually took the body and removed it, which is basically tampering with evidence. Now, here's the thing. This guy probably would have got less time if he would have just called the police and alerted them about what had happened. Either way, you were going to do jail time, but you made it look worse on yourself when you decided to load a dead body into your car, drive to your parents' house, and then drive the body back and leave it there and then drive away again. Prosecutor Adam Wells described Santiago's actions at that night as despicable and disgusting. There was no concern for the humanity of the young man who was dying in the street. There was only concern for protecting himself, for covering up his wrongdoing, and trying to get away with something no matter who he hurt. Santiago, his mother, and Guzman were all charged after the incident. Santiago was charged with 12 felony counts, including reckless vehicular homicide and endangering an injured victim. Guzman, who was Santiago's cousin, and Santiago's mother were charged with tampering with evidence and related offenses. In July 2022, a grand jury opted not to indict his mother, but they did return indictments against Santiago, Guzman, and Santiago's father. Luis Santiago was charged with hindering prosecution by providing false information to the police on the morning of the incident. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced Wednesday to 2 years probation. Now, peep this. This is the picture of the father of the person who did this. He's a lieutenant himself, or was a lieutenant himself, just like his son was a cop. Go figure. And they all were working together like in a link to try to help their piss poor son cover up his crime. There is no good person in this situation. It says he pleaded guilty and was sentenced Wednesday to 2 years of probation. My biggest regret was not calling Bloomfield PD on that night in front of my house. Luis Santiago, who resigned from the New York Police Department, said in court, I should have stayed at my home, detained Lewis and my nephew, and called the proper authorities. You should have. Santiago pleaded guilty to 3 charges: second-degree vehicular homicide, second-degree disturbing human remains, and second-degree official misconduct, and also to a summons for driving while intoxicated. This was a horrible decision that you made on that one night. It's a decision that's going to affect you, your family, the Dimka family forever, Essex County Superior Court Judge Ronald Wigler said. I know everyone wishes we can rewind and take this back, most of all of you in the Dimka family, but that's obviously not possible. Guzman pleaded guilty to a hindering prosecution charge and was placed in a pretrial intervention program. After the court hearing, Dimka's father said he thought the length of Santiago's prison sentence was fair. Not enough to me, but then again, that's not my family member that was taken out. Whatever the sentence will be, 5, 10, 100 years, my pain is still the same. He said, I have only one son, only Damien. And that was your only child. That's crazy. Yep, Leonard, the whole family is trash. Everyone, him, his dad, his mother, whoever that was in the car with him, trash. Absolute grade A garbage. Ms. Lee said he didn't even try to take the person to the hospital. No, he didn't. He literally hit this guy. He was already under the influence. He hit this guy. He quote unquote panicked, loaded the guy into the car, drove to his parents' house so they could strategize, and then drove the body back to where he hit him and literally dumped him there and drove away. It's funny that he wasn't too drunk to do all of that. He was very coherent to do all of that. But 5 years is weak to me for what this dude did. But let's move on. Oh, God, PragerU. Now, y'all know I just did a video about PragerU. Was it last week? I think last week when I was talking about how they're inserting the curriculum, PragerU kids, and I played a little example at the end of the video of what is on that website or what they're about to put into with these kids. I wish I had known about this story when I talked about it, because according to this article coming from local10.com, it says PragerU founder admits conservative material is quote unquote indoctrination. It's now in Florida schools. So they admit that it is, but they'll still put it in there anyway. But this is the same Florida that will say Black people benefited from slavery on one hand, and then on the other hand say we're going to put this in the schools too. Mind you, to remind you, if y'all were unaware, PragerU is not accredited. You couldn't even do this as an elective, but it's somehow inserted into the school system down there in Florida. Broward School District says it will not incorporate the vendor's content into the curriculum. It says the Florida Department of Education has approved a series of educational materials from a conservative group for use in classrooms across the state. On its website and in its 2023 biannual report, PragerU, founded by conservative talk radio host and staunch Dub S Dennis Prager, showcases content framed through the lens of conservative pundits, more like conservative POSs, conservative activists, more like conservative assholes, and Republican National Committee members. The Florida Department of Education says it has reviewed PragerU kids and determined the material aligns to Florida's revised civics and government standards. So they looked at all of that nonsense, all of those lies and all of that crap on PragerU kids and decided that, you know what? This aligns with everything that we stand for. but they admitted indoctrination and they still accepted it. This is Florida for you, y'all. This is Florida for you. PragerU Kids is no different than many other resources which can be used as supplemental materials in Florida schools at district discretion. PragerU Kids did not submit a bid to be included in the 2022-2023 instructional materials adoption for social studies. The list of adopted, that's just a link. On its website, PragerU Kids defines itself as teaching white American values. I got to insert that in there because let's be real here. Teaching white American values. Adding, here it goes, woke agendas are infiltrating classrooms, culture, and social media. And we know what they mean when they say woke, the bastardized version of it anyway. In a video posted to the Moms for Liberty, the White Moms for Liberty, that is, YouTube channel from the group's July Joyful Warriors National Summit conference in Philadelphia, Prager shared with the group a conversation he said he had with demonstrators on his way into the event. I really wanted to hear what evidence do you have that I am despicable? And all I heard was, well, because you indoctrinate kids, which is true. We bring doctrines to children. That is a very fair statement. I said, but what is the bad of our indoctrination? So they're literally telling y'all, I want y'all to understand this. They are telling you to your face, yes, we are indoctrinating your kids. And what you gonna do about it? Who gonna check me? Dennis Prager is flexing right now. They said, yeah, I know I'm indoctrinating, but is it really indoctrination? And I keep telling y'all, and I want y'all to hear me when I say this, this that they're incorporating right here is not for black kids. Yes, it's anti-black stuff in it for sure. I mean, it's PragerU at the end of the day. But this is for the quote-unquote benefit of white children. They have to keep the cycle going somehow. Why do you think in Florida they said that slavery benefited black people? Because they have to push this narrative that slavery wasn't that bad. Keep in mind how they keep trying to say indentured servitude was so bad. Slavery wasn't that bad. Now they're pushing out this anti-white stuff. How is it that you are the oppressor and the victim at the same time is beyond me? And what reality is this? And I always believe in domino effects. Don't think that this is going to start and end in Florida. This is going to spread. As I've alluded to in the video that I talked about when I talked about this. This is just Florida is just the foundation. But once that tree starts to grow and branches start to form, it's going to spread everywhere like a disease, like a plague. So don't think that because you don't live in the state of Florida right now, that is not going to touch wherever you live. In 2022, Governor Ron DeSnowflake announced in a news release that he signed House Bill HB 7 to give business employees, children, and families tools to stand up against discrimination and woke indoctrination. So they want to get rid of quote unquote woke indoctrination, but you're fine with PragerU that's not accredited doing indoctrination. Keep in mind, Ron DeSnowflake is the same person that says Florida is where the woke goes to die, as if woke is a person or some kind of an entity, and that Florida is a dome and it only opens up for anything that's not woke. But the minute that woke touches, it just kind of vanishes into thin air. In its 2023 biannual report, PragerU features content it says has developed for 6th grade and up, which includes Left versus Right. Host CJ Pearson, who is like the oldest looking black 21-year-old I have ever seen in my life. That dude looks like a grandpa before he becomes a grandpa. shines a light on the differences between conservative and left-wing thinking. So that means by the time he becomes a grandpa, he'll be looking like a great-great-grandpa. Conservative and left-wing thinking from the role of government to doing good versus feeling good. According to his LinkedIn profile, Pearson, who dropped out of college. Y'all want to know why I'm laughing when I read that line right there about him dropping out of college? Candace Owens, CJ Pearson, Charlie Kirk, and Matt Walsh. All of them are anti-black, and every last one of them dropped out of school. Let that sink in. Most of these so-called con, or in the black one's case, these conservatives, dropped out of school to either be anti-black or be a bootlick. But what is it that Professor Black Truth says about tools? Eventually you will be broken because tools aren't made of steel. Well, a part of them are, but not the whole thing. Well, these tools are made of plastic. They can be broken, they can be torn, they can be burned. It's just only a matter of time. It goes on to say, it says, is the Republican National Committee's Youth Advisory Council Gen Z National Co-Chair. There is also Mythmash, which the group says smashes the anti-American leftist lies infecting classrooms and inoculates young minds with truthful history told in PragerU's uniquely colorful, entertaining style. Please. Entertaining. I looked at the website. That thing is about as bland as a sponge. In a statement, a spokesperson for Broward County Public Schools says the district has no current plans to incorporate this curriculum into the upcoming school year. A spokesperson for Miami-Dade County Public Schools tells Local 10 News PragerU was approved as a vendor for supplemental materials and resources, but unknown is whether there are plans to adopt PragerU's content into the upcoming school year's curriculum, on whether there will be a process by which parents can exercise their parental rights to education to have their children opt out of the vendor's content. Let's hypothetically say that they didn't get approved. The fact of the matter is that it was actually presented and could have been approved. Like, they literally are willing to put this in there, which I'm gonna be honest, they're probably going to do. Sir Facton said, whatever happened to that short black dude? Oh, you talking about Terrence K. Williams? I don't know where he at. That's another, now that mushmouth individual right there be slobbering all over the place, sounding like Daffy Duck. He's another lost cause. All right, y'all. We got one more story. And that is on a Tyre Nichols update. And I actually found this out last night on a live stream, and I said I'm gonna incorporate it today. And I haven't done a Tyre Nichols update in so long. So this is my first Tyre Nichols update I've done, I think probably since February, maybe. And at first, when I first came across this, I read it wrong, but then I looked into it and I was like, oh, wow, this is insane. So this story actually came out. Well, this one was updated today, but the story actually came out last night. It says district attorney drops more than 30 cases involving former officers, terrorists, charged in Tyre Nichols' death. Now, when I had read it at first, I was like, wait a minute, don't tell me they dropped the charges against them. But then I was like, wait a minute, they didn't drop the charges against them. They dropped more than 30 cases that they were involved with because of what they did to Tyre Nichols. Now, this could either be a good thing or a bad thing. Good, because what if they ended up locking up some people or helping people get locked locked up in prison or in jail for a crime they didn't commit. But the bad thing is, what if they actually locked up actual criminals who did what they did, and they end up getting their cases tossed out because they felt like they might have railroaded them to get in jail? So let's see what it's talking about here. And shout out to Val for the $5.99 super chat. I greatly appreciate it. A district attorney in Tennessee dismissed more than 30 cases involving 5 former terrorists. And shout out to Carla, the Troubleman twins. I tell you, we can't get one without the other. I appreciate that. The $5 super chat, I definitely appreciate it. A district attorney in Tennessee dismissed more than 30 cases involving 5 former police officers who were charged with second-degree murder in the death of Tyre Nichols, according to a statement obtained by CNN affiliate WHBQ on Wednesday. Shelby County District Attorney Stephen Mulroy said his office reviewed approximately 100 cases involving the officers. In addition to the 30 dismissals, charges were reduced in about a dozen other cases. So that means they were probably doing some shady stuff even before then, before what happened with Tyre Nichols. As in any such case, the primary consideration is concern about the credibility as witnesses of discharged officers, the statement said. Nichols died a few days after being pulled over and beaten by the former Memphis police officer terrorist on January 7th. Body camera and videos and surveillance footage from Nichols' arrest were released on January 27th, publicly revealing the severity of the beating, and sparked widespread condemnation from residents and police officials, and the county prosecutor said at the time, contradicting what officers said happened in the initial police report. And shout out to Sir Factant for the $5 super chat. I definitely appreciate it. The district attorney charged the 5 Memphis officers, terrorists, with second-degree murder in the fatal beating of Nichols. All 5 were terminated by the Memphis Police Department. Judge James set a date of September 15th to hear motions from the former officers. Currently, all 5 terrorists accused would be tried together. The attorney for defendant Emmett Martin says 3 of the accused officers are seeking to separate their cases, but says his client isn't among them. Additionally, Jones says he plans to issue an order on a records request by a media coalition to release additional public records, including more video. Jones did not specify when the order would be issued. CNN is part of the media coalition. After the motions are settled, the judge says he will move ahead with scheduling a trial date. The city of Memphis, its police department, and the terrorists fired also face a lawsuit filed by Nichols' family. In February, Mulroy said the Attorney General's office would be reviewing all prior cases involving the 5 terrorists. CNN has reached out to the Shelby County District Attorney's office but has not received a response. So that's the most recent update right there. So it looks to me, like I said, they were probably engaged in some other shady dealings at another point that they have to throw out more than 30 cases involving them. That's not going to be good for them, because we know for a fact they're going to be found guilty on that Tyre Nichols one. We know for a fact they're going to be found guilty of everything. Kip DR or Kip, I'm not sure if it's DR or Doctor. Yeah, still no charges, and they're not going to charge him. We shouldn't be surprised by that. I don't know if he got fired or not. We don't really hear much about him anymore. I forgot that man's name. But the fact that they had to drop more than 30 cases against them, imagine if what happened back in January did not happen. That means that their shady asses will still be out there doing shady stuff. But like I said, we know they're going to be found guilty for what they did to Tyre Nichols. What they also need to do is go after them for these cases that were dropped, because that means they were doing some underhanded stuff with that. This is going to be a long trial. Well, I hope the trial isn't that long, but they're going to be in for a long road ahead. This is only the beginning with no end in sight. But 30 cases, that's a lot of cases. Because they said they ciphered through about 100 of them, and they came up with 30 just with them. And it says more than 30, which means it's over 30 So we don't know the exact number, but it's over 30. That's still a lot. But yeah. Anyway, y'all, that is the end of the stream. We have made it all the way to the end. I didn't expect for it to go this long because I felt like I didn't have that much to talk about, but y'all know I got to get my added commentary in there. But shout out to everybody who came through. If you are new to the channel and you subscribe during the stream, I definitely greatly appreciate it. I hope you stick around and hit that bell to be notified whenever I go live or upload a new video. Tomorrow, I will be uploading 2 videos because y'all know, even though I do upload 1 video a day, whenever I say I upload a movie review, which I will be uploading my Blue Beetle review tomorrow. If you see the premiere window, it's already up. I always say that if I upload a movie review, I'm going to have another video that's going to go along with it that'll come up like a few hours later. So y'all will be getting that video, plus y'all will be getting my take on the Michael Orr situation as well. I know many of y'all can't wait to hear what I have to say about that because I have a lot to say about that. Shout out to everybody who hit the super chat. Denise, Retro, Gemini, Val, Carla, and Surfactant. I definitely appreciate it. Shout out to all the members, all of that good stuff. This live stream will be staying up on the channel. So if you are not on Patreon, you are good. You will be able to catch the playback of this stream. And with that being said, y'all have a good weekend. Y'all be safe. Enjoy the rest of your day and be one.